Hey folks, welcome back. This is Joel, and this is going to be a quick video on how to set up a VPN uh, with your Amazon EC2 instance, right? We are going to be using the OpenVPN solution in this one, right? There are different ways of doing this. AWS has its own, VPN gateways and so on, but this is a very simple solution. If you want to quickly test something, this is really helpful, right? So, what is our game plan here? Let me just go down to my whiteboard. Give me a second. All right. So we're basically going to have something pretty simple right here. We're going to have my laptop, right, which is outside in the internet, right? So you can think of this as the internet over here, right? I'm sitting down here in India, right? And on the other side, we have the AWS data center, right? So we are gonna go and set up our VPN gateway over here on a particular machine, right? This will be a VPN gateway. And once we set up the VPN gateway, what we'll do is we'll also spin up one more, we are gonna spin up one more VM here, right? There'll be another EC2 instance, right, which is going to be spun up. So what we can basically achieve by doing this is we'll be able to, once we do the whole thing, we'll be able to do a VPN from my laptop, right to the VPN gateway, and we'll be from, and as a result from this particular laptop we'll be able to connect to this VM as well, right? Right now this whole thing is in the AWS data center, right? The use case of this is very important. Like, let's say you're working on something very important on your inside your AWS, and all the communication you want it to be encrypted, right? So in that case you can basically set up a VPN, because if you don't do that, then whatever you're doing, right, everything will be traversing the internet and people can see it, right? So VPN is basically a simple solution to encrypt everything, and also obviously connect to to islands, I would say, over the public network, right? And this is something very simple which we're going to do. So what we're going to use here, we're going to use obviously OpenVPN in our case, right? So step number one would be to bring up this VPN gateway, and once this is brought up, right, we'll basically bring up the second VM, in the same AZ, right? As a result, we'll be able to connect from our laptop to this VM, right, without a public address, right? So we'll be able to connect it using the private address itself, right? So we'll check that out. Awesome. So let me just get rid of that. So let's log into my AWS, right? Let's use the password. So we are logging into our AWS account. There are going to be only few steps here, nothing very complicated, right? So what we're going to do is, let's quickly go down to our EC2, and on the EC2 let's go and launch an instance, right? So let's use the old EC2 view, which I really like, right? Let me close that. Let's say launch instance, and on this one let's go to the AWS marketplace and let's search for OpenVPN, right? You're going to get a bunch of AMIs here, but then I'm gonna probably use the one which is free. So there is a free trial here, so I'm going to use this one, the one with the 5 connected devices, right? So I'm going to select this guy. So this is going to show you all the costs for different machine types and so on, which is totally fine. I'm going to say continue. We are basically using the free trial, right? As a result, we are basically going to have this T2 micro. You see here, this is free, right? So T2 micro is basically free. So you're going to select that. I'm going to say configure, and this is the networking part. I'm going to keep it default, which means I'm going to use the default VPC, the default subnet, in any AZ. And for this VPN gateway, we would need a public address, right? So I'm going to enable the public address option over here, right? But for the second VM, we really don't want the public address. That's the whole point, right? We don't want that second VM to be reachable on the internet. We want it to be reachable only after we VPN into our AWS, right? Our VPC. Cool. So once we are done with this, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to say add storage, right? Let's keep everything default. Let's add a tag probably. And the tag, we can probably go with the tag. I'm going to say name, and then I'm going to say OpenVPN OpenVPN, yeah, that's fine. OpenVPN, if you want, I can also write gateway, right? That's the name, just a tag. Security groups, I can go with the default, right? It's allowing SSH, HTTPS, and bunch of custom ports. So these are the ports which will be needed for our VPN, right? So it's automatically enabling it. That's a good thing about using the AMI, right? I'm gonna say review and launch. Okay, so this is what it is going to say. We have the software which is free for 7 days. See, it's saying try one instance of this product for 7 days, right? So that's free. There is no software charges. We also won't have any hardware charges or basically instance charges because we are using T2 Micro, which is also free, right? So you can try this for 7 days for free. Now that being said, let's go and say launch. It's going to ask me for the key. Let's basically create a new key pair, right? Because I really don't have one. So I'm going to say EC2 dash instance, right? So that's cool. I'm going to say download the key, right? The key got downloaded. I'm going to say launch instance. Okay, so that's getting launched. So let's wait for a couple of minutes. Let me pause the video and be back once it is completely done. All right, so this is what I have right now. Let's see what is happening with the subscriptions. Let's click on that. Okay, so you need a license to see the entitlement license. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back to our instances. Let's see what has happened. Let's go to EC2. Let's see if our instance is up. Okay, there you go. We have a running instance. That's okay. So this is initializing, right? Let's wait again. Let's wait for it to okay, so status checks are happening, but you see the instance is running, and the IP which we have been given is 18.220.216.78, right? That's good. So let's see if we can now connect to this guy. So how do you connect? Let's grab the IP address quickly. Okay, that's good. Let's open up our terminal, right? So let's go to downloads because that's the place where we have downloaded the key, right? There you go. We've got the key over here. We've got the, yeah, this is good. So we've got the key, and give me a second. Okay, hope that is visible. I just wanted to increase the font a bit. With that being said, let's do quickly. Let's do SSH. Let's use the key, which is EC2, and what will be the username? So it's going to be OpenVPN, OpenVPN AS, I believe, right? So that's the username which you need to use as per the documentation of the AMI, and then the IP address which we just now used. Sorry, where's the IP address? Let's go and grab the IP address again. So it's over here, it's copied, and there you go. Cool. Let's say yes. Oh, okay, I know why. So we haven't set the permissions for the key. So it's chmod 400, and let's use the key. Yeah, so once you set the permissions, let's try it again. There you go, right? It's coming up. So it's gonna say please enter yes to indicate your agreements. I'm gonna say yes, right? So these are basically a bunch of settings which you need to do the first time you log in, right? Will this be a primary access server? Yes. So it's asking the network interface which will be used, right, for this particular. So it's going to be, the network interface is going to be 2, right, because we're going to be using this Ethernet 0 as the gateway, right? So that's the interface we're going to use. Please specify the port numbers. We're going to use the default port number for the web UI. It's asking the TCP port for the OpenVPN daemon, right? So that's 443. Let's keep all of that default. Should client traffic be routed by default through the VPN? So this is basically asking if the traffic is not destined to AWS VPC, right? What should I do with it? So I'm going to say don't send it over the VPNs. I'm going to say no. DNS traffic, I'm going to again say no, right? Use local authentication, yes. So I mean, technically a full-fledged VPN solution, you would use something like a Radius server, right? You'd basically use some kind of AAA server, but in this case we're going to go with local authentication. So we're going to say yes. Should private subnets be accessible? Yes, because that's the whole idea about doing this, right? The private subnets of my VPC should be accessible. Do you wish to log into the admin UI as OpenVPN? Yes, I'm going to use the username called OpenVPN, you see here. And please specify your activation key or leave blank to specify later. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to enter. So this is going to do its stuff now, probably a couple of, maybe a minute or so, right? It's going to do some configurations for you. And once it is completely configured, it's going to give you this URL, right? This is the URL which you need to keep in mind. Basically the IP address, port number 943 and /admin. So this is the URL where the web UI, right, is present of the OpenVPN, right? Along with that, let's also change the password. Let's basically add a password for this particular user, right? And that's basically going to be sudo, right? Because right now what we have done is we are telling OpenVPN to use the local authentication, right, for a user called OpenVPN, right? That's what we used here. If you go back here, see here, we are basically using the local authentication, and the local authentication is basically OpenVPN. That's the username. Currently there is no password for that particular user, so I'm going to say sudo password, right, OpenVPN, right? So let's set a password for this guy. So I'm going to set a password quickly. You have to retype it. That's okay. And we are done, right? I mean, I think we are completely done with this guy, so I can exit out of here. I really don't want to be connected to him anymore. What I can do now is quickly come down to my browser here, right? Let's grab that URL which we saw earlier. Where is that URL? Over here, right? Let's grab this guy and let's come back here and let's click on here, right? So once you do that, it's gonna give you this unsafe, right? Type this is unsafe, right? On a Google browser, that's what you've got to type, and that's login with OpenVPN, right? Local credentials and the password which we set earlier. Sign in, and this is basically the admin login page of OpenVPN, right? So you can do all your settings for your VPN on this particular page, right? Looks good. So that's what we have. This is how you see, and you see we have basically 5 VPN connections which are allowed as part of this setup what we have set up here. So there's nothing to be seen apart from this. I mean, you can obviously, like I said, do configurations. You can see you have options to do LDAP, radius, do basically all your VPN related settings down here, right? I just wanted to show you guys this view. So let's log out of this, and now let's go to the actual VPN connection page, right? For that, you just need to remove this last part, which is the admin page. Let's get rid of that, and now it should give you, yeah, so this is the user login, right? Just now what we had, that was the admin login, but now we are going to the user login. Again, we are going to use OpenVPN as the user. Password is my password which I set earlier, so I'm going to say login. And now it's going to give me an option to download the client, right? Depending on your operating system, you can even download for like you know, your Android, iOS. I'm going to go with the Mac, right, because I'm running this on Mac. So it's going to take few seconds to download this. While it gets downloaded, what I'll do is let's go and spin up another VM. So what I'm going to do now is let's duplicate this just to make sure. But you guys got this, right? What we are trying to do now is, if I have to show you here, we are basically setting up the second VM now, right? We have set up the first VM. We have yet not tried this whole VPN yet. We'll try it together, right, once we bring up this VM, right? Because right now we are downloading this whole OpenVPN client on my laptop. So meanwhile, let's quickly go and set up this VPN as well. Okay, cool. So how do we do that? So we'll come back to here. I've duplicated this window. Why did I duplicate it? Because I want you guys to note down this, right? The VPC ID is important, and the subnet ID is important, right? So let's come back here. Let's say launch VM, launch instance, and let's use the default L2 AMI, which is free, right? On here we could use the T2 micro. Now this is very important. This is the network settings, right? What is the network settings? So this is VPC 750DA01E. So let's make sure that we are on the same one. Yes. What about the subnet? The subnet is ending with 806. So let's go here in the drop down, let's select 806. Why am I doing this? Because I want to make sure that my new VM and my VPN gateway are in the same subnet, right? Are in the same subnet, same data center, same VPC, right? So that once I VPN into my VPN gateway, I should be able to reach to any of my other machines. So, and then this is very important, right? I'm gonna say don't enable public IP. So I'm going to disable public IP because I really don't want public IP. That's the whole point of having this VPN, right? I don't want this machine to be reachable from outside internet, right? So I can do some really important stuff on this one, right? On this particular machine, and no one will have access to it. So that being said, I'm going to say add storage, right? Pretty much keep default. I can add a tag here. I'm going to say name, and I'm going to say, probably private VM or private instance, right? Let's call this as private instance. And yeah, let's go. The security group, it's going to give you a default SSH group, which is more than enough. So I'm going to say review and launch, and here I'm going to use the existing key pair which we just now created. Let's reuse it. I'm going to say launch, right? Now it's going to take few seconds to launch. Meanwhile, let's see what has happened here. It has downloaded, so we can click on this, right? So it's trying to open, so it's on my other windows. Let's quickly get that on this window. There you go, right? Just double click on this application, so you'll have to install it quickly. Let's quickly click continue, agree, install. Let's authenticate, and once it is done, there you go, it's completed. You can just get rid of that, and you should basically find it in your, right? So let's click on this guy, and this is where, give me a second. Yeah, so let's grab it from this window. Yeah, there you go, right? So this is what you get, and this profile would have been preloaded into it because just now we downloaded it, right? So what we're going to do now is let's enable this profile, right? For enabling the profile, you'll have to again put the credentials, which is OpenVPN and my password clearly. Okay, so there you go, it's trying to connect. Okay, there you go, it's connected already, which means now what should we be able to do, right? If you go back to my diagram, what should be, you should try right now. So so this is what we have done, right? Our VPN is already set up. We just saw that our VPN is connected and it's all working fine. So from here to here, our connection is good. So from this laptop, let's see if we can connect to this VM now, right? And the funny thing is, we will not use the public IP, we'll use the private IP. So let's do that. So let's go to the VM. Let's see if the VM has been set up. It should be on this particular page. Let's refresh this guy. Okay, there you go, the two VMs. Let's select this private instance VM. Let's see the IP address. There you go, right? So you see, this is the private IP address. So I'm gonna grab that IP. Let's clear the screen a bit. Let's do SSH. The key is gonna be very same as what we had earlier, and the user for this is EC2 user, right? For any of my Linux AMIs, that is the user, and I can put in the IP address. And there you go, it's reachable, guys, and awesome. See, we are in, right? I can even do IP config just to make sure that, okay, sorry, IF config, and you see the IP address is same thing, 172.168.18.38, which is basically what we connected to, right? So what did we try? We can also double check by doing this, right? So let's exit out of here, right? Let's exit out of here and clear the screen. And this time, give me one sec. Yeah, so what we're gonna do now is let's quickly go and disable this. You saw the VPN is working fine, right? It's all connected and everything is good. But now what we're gonna do is let's disable this, right? So there you go, I've disabled it. Now if I try the same command which we did before, right? This is not going to work because we have disabled the VPN. As a result, we have lost connectivity to the private network, right? To the VPC's private network, which we were earlier connecting to. Cool. So I think that kind of shows the whole idea about using VPNs and how you can basically connect securely to your instance using something as simple as OpenVPN, right? So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Have a good one.